Hello everyone, as you can see or as you can hear, I bought a new microphone and from now I'll be able to cover some themes much more efficiently than I did before. So today we're gonna talk about 4 or 5 things you should pay attention to while playing PvP in World of Warcraft. After we cover all these things and you start implementing them in your gameplay, you improve your PvP experience as a beginner for sure. So let's start with number 1. Spells. First, and in my opinion most important thing about whole PvP system lays in spells. There are 10 different classes in Wrath of the Lich King and 30 different specs, where each spec has some of their own unique abilities next to base spells. So imagine if you don't really know what is each spec capable of while you're fighting them. It's absolutely impossible to play serious PvP or PvP at all if you are not aware of all possible spells your enemy can use in every moment. Learning this aspect of game gives you opportunity to react properly in each situation and to have answer for each spell casted by the enemy player. So I'll give you 2 quick examples why is this so important for PvP. As you can see, we have Arms Warrior here. I did classic rogue opener with kidney shot, which he trinketed and instantly used his main defensive ability called Shield Wall. Imagine if you have no clue what this spell does and you keep fighting face to face with Warrior as a rogue, that would only end in a pure disaster. On the other side, if we know that Shield Wall reduces 60% of our damage, we'll try to avoid it by using some of our crowd control or escape abilities. Knowing enemy spells won't only help you to use that CC, but to save your main DPS abilities for later phase of fight so we can maximize our damage. So if you're a beginner and you're still struggling, you can solve this problem in a couple of ways. I myself learned most of abilities by leveling multiple classes on former Molten WoW. I didn't do it actually to learn spells, but I had a lot of fun playing different specs and discovering game that way. Second, and maybe the most efficient way, is making characters on instant AT PvP realms like Blackrock. You are free to make as much characters as you wish and have free gear, free gems, enchants, professions and much more. It's also the most entertaining way to overcome this problem by playing battlegrounds and trying different things. And third, the most boring and efficient way to learn spells is by using Google. Just don't. Since we are done with the spells, we have to approach our talents and gear. What do I mean when I say approach a talent build? Well, don't just copy and paste talents from random internet source. You have to read and study every talent separately by yourself and decide is it really worth spending points or not. It's true that more experienced players that post on internet might be right, but give it a shot and try to make your own talents. That way you'll understand why are some builds more optimal than the others. This way, you will not only learn correlation between your spells and talents, which is also the most important thing when we talk about this, but you will be able to make build for your needs, which might be different from standard talent builds. For example, I had a comment on my Arcane Mage burst video from Battlegrounds and guy asked me why the heck do I use Molten Armor as Arcane Mage, like it's weird. By the fact I needed to boost my damage to the maximum because my video was about burst compilation, not about 1 vs 1 or arena, I adjusted my talent build and gained 5 or 6 more crit chance by switching on Molten Armor and lost some other things that I used in casual PvP. All I want to say is to think outside of the box and make a talent research before playing some spec. Alright, we can now advance to tip number 3. Addons and macros. Addons are something that can help you track some things like crowd control or cooldowns much easier. Someone maybe finds it difficult to download proper addons and set them properly, but trust me, it's an easy job. Go to my channel and find my addons video, where I cover some of the main PvP addons in the most simple way. Don't just download the link, because there are some other addons that you might don't need. So I think that PlateBuffs, Sound Alerter, Lose Control and some enemy tracking cooldown will increase your PvP experience dramatically. Now we can go back to tip number 1, which was the spells thread. These addons will show and tell you which offensive or defensive cooldown enemy used, but it means nothing if you have no clue what Shield Wall, Death, Berserk or Shadow Dance do. So spells are the base for everything that we cover in this video. Now let's say a couple of words about macros. Because the main concept of macro is to perform more than one action at a time in order to easier accomplish a task. They are an indispensable part of every arena. Macros have several purposes and uses in PvP and World of Warcraft in general. You can use them to bind 2 or more spells on one button, then you can use them to cast spells on enemies you're not even targeting at the moment, and you can use them as mouse over cast and other things. Briefly, they make game and actions much more easier and smoother. Some specs require more and some less macro usage. Still, there are some specs that are almost unplayable without them, like Arms Warriors. I will show you fast how macros work. For example, Retaliation requires Battle Stance. You will need to switch Battle Stance, then you will be able to use Retaliation. With macro, you will just need to click 2 times fast. Here you go. Another example is for Spell Reflection. First click will switch to one hand and shield, other click is Spell Reflection. Shield Bash 2. We are sitting in Battle Stance. He started to cast something. We'll 2 times fast and we use the shield back. That's much easier and faster than switching 3 stances and million of K bandits. The next thing to pay attention to maybe won't have a big impact on beginners' experience in PvP, but I think that these things should be clarified and understood, because these things have their place in World of PvP and cannot be ignored. It is about diminishing returns and magic schools. So game knowledge will help you to understand how the game works itself in PvP. So let's see what diminishing returns does. Diminishing returns means that certain spells and abilities become less effective against a target used frequently within a short period of time. Which means that if the same category of effect, for example root, is used on target within 18 seconds, that effect duration is reduced by 15%. Second cast from root category will be 75%, and next spell from roots target will be immune. So we need to pay attention to categories: roots, stuns, disorient, silences, and so on. Let's try to use diminishing returns on Warlock. Let's see how it works. For example, we will use Fear and Pet Seduction as CC spells. Let's start with Seduction. Both spells should be 10 seconds of CC. Seduction was 10 seconds. Let's try to Fear now. As we see, it's 50% reduced. Now it's 5 seconds. Let's try to do Seduction again. It's 2.5 seconds. And let's try to Fear now. Immune. Let's try to do Seduction. Immune. So the thing is, first spell was 100% CC, 10 seconds. Second one was 50% reduced. We can see here very good example how understanding the diminishing returns can affect your gameplay. If you use these two spells in combination, a War Stomp, which is stun of 2 seconds, and Kidney Shot, which is stun of 6 seconds, in this order, we'll get just 5 seconds of CC, because War Stomp will activate the diminishing returns and decrease Kidney Shot length by half. 3 seconds plus 2 seconds is just 5 seconds of CC. If these two same spells we use in another order, if Kidney Shot is first, we'll get full 6 seconds of CC, then Kidney will activate the diminishing returns of War Stomp and decrease its 2 seconds by half, and we'll get 1 second of War Stomp and get full 7 seconds of CC. That's the reason why is diminishing returns so important for PvP, because you have to plan your CC. Next thing we're gonna talk about are magic schools. Every spell belongs to one of 7 schools: Arcane, Fire, Frost, Nature, Shadow, Holy or Physical. How does it affect gameplay in PvP? Well, if you cast for example Arcane Blast, and meanwhile someone uses Counterspell, Mind Freeze or Kick to interrupt you, you will end up being locked on that school, in this case Arcane School, and you won't be able to cast any spell from that school in next few seconds. On Mage example, we can see that if we lock its first magic school, Mage won't be able to use one of the main defensive cooldowns like Ice Block and other frost spells. If we kick for example Arcane Blast, Mage won't be able to use Polymorph. That's huge thing, and gameplay is built around it. Still, there are 2 ways to avoid being locked. First one is fake casting, when people start casting some spell and casts it very fast, that provokes a quick reaction on other side, and the enemy player, usually inexperienced, try to interrupt it reflexively, which ends up on wasted interrupting cooldown. Other way is to intentionally cast some ability for secondary school and expect interrupt, which will lead to free cast of your main spells, which are frost bolts in this case. And we covered all these things first. Last and the most important thing is practice. Without it, everything we talked about is meaningless. Best way to practice any class is to start playing PvP realms like Blackrock. If you want to improve mechanically, start playing duels against all type of players, experienced and inexperienced, and against all type of classes. There is not much to talk about it. You need to lose tens and hundreds of duels before you start catching up. Feel free to ask someone experienced in game who plays your spec about certain matchups, how to open fights, how to counter someone, which gear to use, what to change in your talents and more. Also try to use Google, try to find some footage on YouTube, forums and more. When you get along with your spec, you will be able to perform much better in arena environment too. Duels and arenas are different, but after you have overcome all these things, you will catch up much faster with strategies inside the arena world. When you overcome everything we talked about here, you'll be able to change specs as I'm doing right now, and you will need little practice to be a decent player. Take your time and enjoy the journey. That's everything for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Peace and see you soon.